Do you ever feel like you are overscheduling every single second of every single day? Or maybe you are the type who just kind of wings it every day and hopes for the best. Whether you've shown time who is boss or you've let it run the show and bowl you over, this episode has something for you. It is a live from the field report after I conducted a number of time management experiments, all in the name of helping us all figure out which one is best for me, for you, for your personality, and the tasks that you specifically have at hand. Welcome to Content with Character, the weekly podcast that'll give you the momentum you need to create content with more ease, clarity, and laughter. I'm your host, content copywriter Emily Aborn, and I'm all about unconventional marketing approaches. I believe in your big ideas, and I'm excited to help you share them in a way that's distinctly you. Hello, welcome back. We are wrapping up the month of April on Content with Character, and we're doing it in a nice little, we're going to tie it all up in a nice little bow. The theme of April has been light, fun, a little bit looser, because honestly, I needed some lightness and some breathing room in life. Life has been challenging, and I don't know about you, but I'm always feeling like I'm just working so hard on work, on myself, on being a good friend, auntie, sister, wife, human, working on keeping myself together, everything from crashing down around me. It's a lot of work. One thing I came up with last year to help me improve my life in these little ways and also improve myself over time is to look at these things like experiments whenever possible. So I like to try, when I try new things or when I'm going through something new, I consider it like, okay, I'm just testing this. I'm just giving it a whirl. And then what I started last year was that I would actually write about it on a weekly Substack and report my findings about various experiments. So if you're interested in reading that at all and what the experiments have been, I'll share that link in the show notes. One of the things that people ask me about a lot that I was like, oh, I haven't done much experimenting apart from how I do things already. One of the things people ask me a lot is how I stay so organized, how I manage my time, how I get so much done. So I was like, ooh, this could be really interesting. I think I'm going to do something a little bit different in my experiments, and not just experiment with things that'll help me in life or things that I want to try in life, but also things that will help you, because I have a pretty good time management system. The truth is, I've read lots and lots of books on this stuff. I have been obsessed with organization and planning and productivity since I was like a little kid. I babysat my brothers a lot growing up, pretty much every day. And when it came to lunchtime, this big sister, I didn't just like whip out the peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and fluff and make them lunch. No, I went through the refrigerator. I created a menu of all of the options I could make for them. I named the restaurant. I served them as a waitress once they placed their order, and of course did the dishes as the dishwasher. And yes, we did make modifications for individual dietary preferences. I just have this way where I just really like anything that is not planned. I just like to put in a plan or structure or order. So anyway, I love planning. I can make a plan where no plan has yet existed before. But despite being the planner of all planners, my answer when people ask me about organization or time management 100% of the time is, I don't know. It depends. It depends on you. And so that's why I decided to do this episode. That's where these experiments and adventures in time management came in. I want to help you determine the best time management tools for you and work through some of those it depends. So for context, I'm a small business copywriter and marketing consultant, and I'm going to share relevant examples about various projects where I apply these techniques. And hopefully that will help you to see how you could apply some of them for yourself. As an added bonus for today's show, I don't know, maybe it's not of interest to you, but I did create extended show notes, which I wanted to do that because I wanted to lay out all of the methods, who I think it would be helpful for, and then like any pros and cons that I kind of discovered along the way. That way you can maybe discover a time management method that you didn't know existed. So just if you're interested in that, just go to the show notes and look for the pointy emoji finger and the words extended show notes. And hopefully you don't get lost. But if you do, you know where to find me. I'm also going to talk very fast because I have a lot of these experiments to get through and I don't want this to be like world's longest episode. So let's get into the experiments. I'll tell you how I laid out my research and like why I felt like now was the time to do this. At the beginning of the year, 2025, I came up with a plan for myself based on like what I had been through kind of the past 2 years. I came up with a plan that every single month I was going to give myself 1 week with no calls, no appointments, nothing I had to do apart from client work and personal stuff. But I didn't want any like forward-facing business stuff at least 1 week per month. It was a tall ask, just like looking at how I have scheduled my life in the past. Anyway, it did go really well in January. So like exactly 1 month. And then the tsunamis and the tidal waves, it took it entirely down until I spiraled out of control. And by the end of March, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Now, in a nutshell, or honestly, truthfully, I can be a little bit of a pushover, but also I had people kind of like mucking up my plan. So I had to, in some cases, give in and like otherwise it would have got weird. So for the last 3 weeks of March, when the insanity and the busyness were like unprecedented, I kind of hit a low point. I felt nearly burned out. And so I was like, I want to do this experiment now because my hope is for myself that 1, it will help me to get back on track. And 2, I'll get done all these things, like a whole lot in a short amount of time. So here's what I actually did. I told Chat GPT the premise of this episode and like the exact time management experiments that I wanted to try. And then I plugged in everything for the next 3 weeks and I asked it to give me a day by day and in some cases hour by hour plan for running my experiments. And one final word before we get into the actual experiments. In the name of full disclosure, I don't have kids that need my attention. I co-run a household with my husband. We split pretty evenly the tasks and chores. I have a dog. I walk twice a day. I have my own personal morning routine. I try to get in time with family, friends, and time with my husband, but I don't have kids, meaning I can't know the challenges of managing a business with kids or taking care of aging family members or ill family members or being ill or aging yourself. So please keep that in mind going into this episode and adjust and consume accordingly. And I also wanted to share, I am not like a time management or productivity expert, obviously, but I know who is. My friend Lisa Zaratny has a wonderful podcast called Positively Living, and she gives a ton of productivity and time management support and advice and also energy management. And the other thing I wanted to just touch on is I don't think that time is like some sort of enemy or something to be wrangled. What I actually think is that we need to kind of work on our attention in a lot of cases, because a lot of times attention gets scattered and parsed out here and there and everywhere, and we feel like we don't have time, but a lot of it is actually just because we're distracted a lot of time. I think I'll probably do another episode kind of on that because I recently read this really great article on it and I had some insights from it that I wanted to share. But today, for the purposes of today's episode, sit back, relax, learn something new, enjoy the fruits of my labor, and I hope that the episode inspires you to spring clean your time management habits or get back in the driver's seat and discover what really works for you. Lastly, of course, remember there's no one size fits all. And a lot of times it's going to be a matter of mixing and matching. And depending on who you are and what you're working on and how your week is going, you may need to change and adapt. And I think that that's good. It helps to increase your resilience and your ability to kind of like navigate things. And that's been my work too, is as planned as I am, it's very good for me to practice being unplanned because that builds my resilience too. So let's get into it. Week 1 is the SOS week, send structure. So during this week, I had been balancing calls and I only had like a few very focused work periods. Everything was sort of like peppered in here and squeezed in there. I was trying to prep for a workshop I had to give. There was an additional kink in my week because I had a project that was getting wildly delayed and another one went a little bit awry. Neither of these are my doing. There were also some unexpected meetings that I ended up having to take. It was like sheer chaos, which does not go so well for me. And I also need a lot of focus time. So know. If your hand is raised, I knew you would understand. So to keep myself out of this spiral of overwhelm, I decided, you know what, the buck stops here, basically. I used Monday to map out the rest of the week. Now, I did use Chat GPT's help because I wanted it to kind of like take what I had dumped in my brain and get it organized a bit. I love brain dumps. Personally, I feel like almost all good productivity and time management at least starts with a master brain dump of some sort. Now, I can't prove this to be true, but if you're not a brain dumper, please try it. See how you feel for yourself. Some people call this a mind sweep, but that sounds kind of like too lovely for me. I like a brain dump. I just like to dump out my brain. And I define it as like taking out the mental trash. So it's like your half-baked ideas, your fully baked ideas, your to-do list, your random shower thoughts, your client tasks, your tasks, things you were supposed to schedule but you haven't yet, like your dog's vet visit or your child's dentist appointment. It's basically turning your brain upside down, shaking it like a piggy bank, and being like, okay, here is everything that came out. You're externalizing so that it's not just sitting up there swirling around. So I always start with a brain dump, and I did that first and foremost, and then I had ChatGPT like, can we take this brain dump and please help me to get organized? After it was all dumped out, I organized it into my experiments that I wanted to try, and on we go. Onward we go with experiment number 1, which is eat the frog. It's a horrible expression, I know. It comes from Mark Twain's quote, eat a live toad the first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day. Eating the frog is essentially just tackling the hardest task right away. It's great for people who overthink or who will delay those hard tasks. It helps you to clear your mind of like some of the cobwebs and the clutter and the background noise, the background stress, the background distractions, all the background. So you can focus on the other more important activities, the big chunks of your day. It's not ideal if you're going to try eat the frog. It's not ideal, I would say, for people who work better at night. I mean, that's pretty obvious, and I would also say it's not ideal for people who need like a creative warm-up period to get into their tasks. So think about yourself. Do I work better at night? Do I need a creative runway to get into my tasks? If so, eating the frog might not be for me. Your definition of what a quote-unquote frog is of course going to be unique to you. From a content marketing lens, I was thinking of some of the things that might be frogs for people. For example, writing a sales page, even making a post or creating a reel, recording a video, sending a podcast pitch, signing up for a networking event or scheduling a coffee date with someone, cleaning out your inbox. You would be surprised at how much all of those things that you have not done because there's like a challenge to them, how much they're impacting your brain when you're focusing on other things and how much they're impacting the rest of your life. So eat the frog. The day I employed the eat the frog technique, I was able to really move through the rest of my day with a little bit less stress. One advantage I saw, an additional one, is that I don't know about you, but as my day wears on, I tend to lose steam. So doing the hardest thing for me, first thing, is really, really good. And like many people, probably most people, I definitely avoid doing things that I don't enjoy doing. I will also put my own stuff last. So by the end of the day, I might have exhausted myself with doing other people's work or decision or action fatigue. And then it's really hard for me to go ahead and do that hard stuff by the end because I'm just wiped, right? So eat the frog. Then you can just take those things off your list entirely. And suddenly you're staring down a list of things that are not a pain in the butt or the hardest part of your day, as per Mark Twain. Okay, experiment number 2 is, I know we're just jumping right into all of them. Experiment number 2 is the Eisenhower Matrix. The Eisenhower Matrix was used by President Eisenhower to organize tasks. Fun fact, Eisenhower was known for exceptional productivity. And I will include a link to a video describing the matrix and showing you a picture if you're like a visual kind of person, but you can also just Google it. I mean, Eisenhower, spelled just like the president, matrix. Essentially, the matrix is this. You break down your tasks into 4 categories: urgent and important, not urgent but still important, urgent but not important, not urgent and not important. I think this matrix is great for overthinkers, people who are just drowning in a to-do list and cannot see a way out, people who get distracted easily by shiny object syndrome, or people just focusing on the fun stuff that they enjoy while putting off all of the urgent, important things that they maybe don't enjoy. So the day I ran this experiment, I drew out the little matrix thingy, and then I put my day's tasks and duties into their respective quadrants. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to set out to make sure that these urgent and important tasks get immediate attention. So I do those first. Then I will do the not urgent but important, and then I will do the urgent, not important. And then I didn't have anything personally on that not important and not urgent list. But so interestingly enough, this was kind of like eating the frog, but it wasn't exactly like it, because the hardest or most annoying doesn't necessarily need to come first, but sometimes you might find that those are going to overlap with what needs to be done now. Categorizing it like this was really helpful. I am the kind of person who tends to see everything on my to-do list as urgent and important. And so this helped me see like, okay, everything on the list is in fact important, but it's not all urgent. And like I said, I didn't have any tasks I could just remove entirely, but please see if you do, because I would imagine some people do. For me, I've worked really hard to remove those tasks and those things from my life, and I continue to purge and do so. But I think it could be really helpful for somebody who just says yes or puts somebody else's agenda over their own all the time, or is prone to wasting time, all of that stuff. I've also heard people describe this metrics through the lens of to do, to decide, to delegate, and to delete. But I wasn't entirely able to see that really applying for me just in this instance. And I think the key is to really be honest with yourself. If you are doing this Eisenhower Matrix, you have to break down your brain dump or your to-do list into like realistic categories. You have to be real. So just like I said, who I think it's great for, I'm also going to say that I think for some, it won't be so great. I could see the Eisenhower Matrix being too like corporate reminiscent, or like kind of analytical, and sort of not being great for like creativity and flow. I probably won't use it again. I found it weird to structure my day and tasks like that. It made me feel like I was doing algebra and like trying to find the XY axis or something. Did not love it, but I could see it being really, really useful for some. Experiment number 3, time blocking. I love time blocking. I'm obsessed with it. I always have been since I first discovered it. And when I utilized it, I had to put myself in your shoes. I had to approach it like a true experiment, pretend I hadn't done it. I'm not saying you haven't, but I'm just saying I had to pretend I had never done it before. And I committed to the project. So the first day I did it, I had a call first thing in the morning, which ended up being an hour. And then it took me an hour and 15 minutes to get regrouped, meaning I had to get a snack, I had to get back on track. It was a lot longer than I had blocked out to get regrouped. Let's just say that. So when a day starts to feel like it's slipping away from me like that, time blocking is my go-to, because I can work backwards. Okay, I want to be done at 4:15 p.m. today. Here's the tasks I have to do, and go. Personally, I prefer long time blocks, but the particular day that I tried it, I had shorter ones. And the way I broke it down, this is just an example of like how you could use it. So for example, from 11:45 to 12:45, so 1 hour, I did the copy for a landing page. I did the bios for the landing page, and I replied to an email. That was 1 hour. For another hour, I started putting together a voice of brand for a client. This is like a little sample I send people to give them their voice, a sample of their voice. For 15 minutes, I had free time, stretch, laundry in the dryer, boiling more tea water, letting the dog go pee, that kind of thing. For another hour, I wrote an outline for a Content with Character episode. That takes me, an entire hour. And then for the last hour, I started creating an outline for my upcoming workshop on content creation, whizzed through the outline and started doing slides because I had the time blocked, and I kept on working. And then for the last 15 minutes, I wrapped up my day. I made a social media post, filled in an idea that in my future content plan that I didn't need to like write in that moment, but I wanted to get the idea down. And then that was it. I was done. I walked my dog, did my close down routine, made dinner, blah, 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 blah. So if you decide time blocking is for you, you can do it any way you want. You can do really, really long time blocks. Like usually I'll do like a 3-hour time block for myself with one project because I really like to get deep in the projects that I'm doing. But a shorter one works too. And you can see where sometimes if you feel like your day is starting to get away from you, it might be just the thing you need. If I could give you some tips, it would be a couple things. First, I found this great new timer app. It's just through Google, and I do use that. And then I also will use, like, to keep distractions at bay, closing all unnecessary tabs that are not relevant to this particular block. That includes email. My phone goes in Do Not Disturb. All distractions, goodbye. I also will put on some like sound, like some sort of sound that helps me to get into a productivity mindset. So sometimes it's piano music, sometimes it's binaural beats. It's something with no lyrics that just helps me to like focus. So I really love time blocks. Like I said, I did shorter ones that day. I'm really loving the long ones personally. What and who it's good for? I think they're really good for planners, people who love structure. Maybe you like to plan your day ahead of time and you want specific time slots to work on tasks. You probably would not be one that would like chaos of like a looser schedule. It's not very loose, but it can give you a lot of clarity on what's going on and when. And I think it's really great for like when you're working on big projects or long form content. You can just kind of sit down, work on a long time block. It's not great for people who don't want to feel restricted or people who maybe have wildly unpredictable lives that will throw off their plan, because it can leave you, if let's say you just like bomb through all your time blocks and you don't make any of them, it can kind of leave you feeling defeated. And it's not flexible unless you make it flexible, which you can do. So if you have a time block and you didn't get to what you need to that day, you can always move it into another day or move it into a different time block. Like, you can make it as flexible as you want. So they work best for me on days that I do not have calls, and I don't have to like task switch a lot, because I like to get in flow. I've heard that it doesn't work fantastically for people who have kids or with certain neurodiversities or depending on your job or the tasks. If you do use them, I would also lastly just recommend putting in like an hour at the beginning or end of your day or collectively to like clear emails, respond to texts, complete very small tasks, because the worst thing when you're in the middle of a good time block is like being distracted by emails or pings. So those are my tips. I have a lot because I love time blocking. Experiment number 4, intuitive or creative flow time. I'm just going to call this the unplanned day. Now, I told you I'm a major planner. This is hard for me, and I really wanted to try it. I really wanted to give it a go. I hear so many people talk about like flow time or intuitive productivity, and it sounds so lovely. But in my world, this translates to having no plan and anxiety, which is really hard for me, and that is why I'm in therapy, folks. So even on the weekends, I kid you not, I usually have a plan. Like, the chores aren't going to do themselves, so I give them a plan. I decided that a good day to try my first experiment in flow time was a weekend, because I had stuff to do, but it wasn't like life or vacuum, aka death. So when I set into my day, I had to resist the urge to map it all out and give every moment of the day a plan. I had a lot to do. I had chores. I had to call my little brother. I had to do the laundry. I had to take a walk. I had a bunch of like menial admin stuff in my business. I'm not going to bore you with all of it. And of course, I wanted to make time for a date night with my husband. I had lots I wanted to do, but I just decided to let it flow. And it was a great day, let me just tell you. I was going to start cleaning. I was like going to get right into it, but my husband's like, hey, do you want to go for my walk with me, my morning hike with me and the dog? So I was like, yes, please. So I did that first. And then I came back and I did a little bit of like admin stuff and some organizing. And then I got into my cleaning, and I like just really tried not to look at the clock and see if I was like quote unquote on schedule. I changed over the laundry, called my brother, missed him, decided to get some fresh air, enjoyed the glorious sunshine. And while I was walking, my brother called me back. 2 hours later, I hung up the phone with him and his wife. And I was like, oh my God, now I feel like recording a podcast episode. So I did that. I then folded laundry, did a bunch more admin stuff. And before I knew it, it was date night time. And like, I had never put a plan in place, but somehow it all got magically done and more. Turns out you do not need a perfect little to-do list to feel accomplished because by the end of that day, I felt so good, like so productive, but also satisfied. And I got, like I said, more done than I intended. I had more fun than I thought I was going to. And I really liked the feeling of not being beholden to a clock or time block or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I need to give this a fair shake. I'm also going to try it on a work day. And I decided to try it on a Friday because that's the most manageable for me. Again, it was really, really hard for me to resist creating a plan, and I started to feel really, really anxious. To keep myself focused on the whole like going with the flow thing though and resist putting in the plan, I kept asking myself this question, and it was really helpful. I just kept saying, what do I want to do next? Like, what do I feel like doing now? And then I would just kind of pick a task off my brain dump that I wanted to do. And it was helpful. It still felt like I had a little bit of a rapid heartbeat while operating this way, which is noteworthy. And that shows me that this is an area I need to work on. So flow time, intuitive schedule, it's simply kind of working when that inspiration hits and when you asking yourself, what do I feel like doing right now? And then resting or doing something else when the inspiration isn't there or the motivation isn't there. I think it's really good for people who work best by following that creative energy. And I think it can allow for organic creativity and motivation and flow once you get into that deep focus. And it's something you're just really drawn to and into. Who I may not recommend it for, or who I may not recommend it for if you tend towards procrastination already, or if you have tight deadlines, I guess I wouldn't say it's probably for you. I personally would not use this on a client work day. If I sit around and wait for motivation or inspiration or creativity to strike me on those days, I will be waiting all day long. So one way to set yourself up for success, if you do decide to go this route, is I think that work has to get done. The work that is urgent and important has to get done to make room for days like this in a lot of cases. And then you're able to feel a little bit more free, not having a plan. So if I can set up the rest of my week in a more planned way, if I can get a lot of those rocks done, for example, I open myself up to whatever I feel like doing next. And I don't have those anxious feelings, those heart palpitations. So for content creation and marketing, I think it's a great way if you can do this, if you can operate this way. This is a great time to try brainstorming new ideas, creating, writing, just being free. It's really an interesting way to work, especially for those of us who like a plan. Okay, experiment number 5. We have just one more after this for a total of 6. Experiment number 5 is task batching or batching. Some people just call it batching. And it's basically when you group similar tasks together and you're working on those and only those. So it actually could go really nicely hand in hand with time blocking. It's a little bit similar. I find task batching best for when I have a lot of tedious tasks or things like this. So if I finish recording all of the episodes of the podcast for a month, I can use a task batching time to just upload them all, write the show notes, write the emails that go with them, a month of social. I like it to split out, for example, I have a different energy when I'm recording the episode to when I'm doing the backside of uploading it and adding the show notes and writing the emails, right? So I might parse those out depending on what vibe I guess I bring for a particular task. So you essentially categorize your similar tasks, let's say responding to emails, and then you do, or content creation, and then you do those in dedicated chunks. I really love this, like I said, when it comes to recording a bunch of podcasts at a time, because then I can stay in the zone, stay high energy, and just keep on going. So usually I'll spend one task batching time outlining, one writing the emails for them, one recording, one uploading and doing all the website stuff, that kind of thing. It's really good for people who want efficiency, but they don't want to micromanage their day. It also, I think, helps with minimizing context switching, which can be a form of distraction for some of us, and it builds momentum. You almost always walk away feeling very, very accomplished, unless you are the kind of person who has to do a task in entirety from A to Z. I can sometimes tend toward this too, so like no shade, but you have to know which tasks you'll be okay with batching and which ones you're like, no, if I sit down to start this, I must finish it. Who I don't recommend it for is people who get like really bored while doing mundane things or doing just one thing. People who maybe don't have long chunks of uninterrupted time. And I will also say, depending on the task, you might need to factor in some sort of like energy management. Like some things are just really draining and you have to know yourself, maybe reward yourself with something sort of exciting if you're going to be working on a bunch of draining tasks during a task batching session. But overall, really interesting and good method. Okay, experiment number 6. This one I had never tried before. It is called the Pomodoro method. I decided to also try this on a busy Friday. I had a therapy appointment in the morning. It sounds like I'm in therapy a lot, but literally I've only been twice at the time of recording this, obviously. So anyway, I had an appointment in the morning, ran a couple errands. My original plan was to come home, do some task batching for my podcast. But when I looked at my list, I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these little tiny things that I want to check off before the weekend. It's Friday after all, and I like to have a free weekend. So I decided it was a good day to try the Pomodoro method. Kind of fitting that it was after therapy because we were actually discussing being in a very like high state of getting things done throughout the day, but then crashing at the end of the day. So I was like, ooh, maybe Pomodoro will be helpful in kind of balancing this out for me. And then maybe I won't be so exhausted by the end of the day. So I decided to see if it could help with some of this like need for speed, followed by sitting in a corner disassociating at the end. Pomodoro means tomato in Italian, or as some of you may say, tomato. The technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s, and it involves working in a focused 25-minute interval called a Pomodoro. Then you follow that up with a 5-minute break, and after 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. Cirillo named it after the tomato-shaped kitchen timer he used as a student. How cute. For each Pomodoro, you select a task, you set a timer for 25 minutes, you focus solely on that task for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, repeat for 3 more Pomodoros, and then take a longer break. And yes, that is a lot of math. I don't like it either. Basically, it's work, sprint, break, rinse and repeat, long break. How did it go? Well, the 5 minutes in between, I didn't take breaks. I was like, oh my God, the time ran out already. I have to decide what to do next. So I did not take breaks. This is like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. I don't like this. I don't like jumping around like this. I feel very frazzled. I feel very pulled in different directions trying to prioritize when it's just like a bunch of small stuff, all similar in priority. All in all, not a fan. I felt very scattered and overwhelmed. And then like every time, just when I was on a roll, the damn timer would stop. And I was like, ugh. So knowing myself, I could have told you this from the beginning, but I'm also glad that I decided to just give it a try because here's who I think it is good for. I think it's really good for somebody who thrives on momentum, short, focused work sprints. I think it's really good for people who procrastinate or feel overwhelmed. It's kind of just like this ready, set, go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's also really good for people who work under time pressure. Supposedly, that's a pro. I've also heard that it can help prevent burnout and it keeps you moving. Who it is not good for? People who need to get into deep flow states. Those trying to accomplish focused tasks that take longer than 25 minutes. Those who cannot stand time pressure. Those who do not like leaving things half finished, hand raised higher than yours high. I thought of some ways that maybe in the future I could apply it because I do tend to get in my own way sometimes and I'll take way too long on something that should take under 25 minutes. So some ways I thought I could apply it would be like creating a reel or a social caption or even probably writing my email or an email subject line depending on the day that I'm overthinking, right? So it could be really good to try like a timed brainstorm on something or making a decision. So I kind of liked it for that. But overall, it was really intense for me specifically. And those are the 6 experiments I tried. That was all over the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, sorry. And in the final week, week 3, I decided to do 2 more experiments, but the week got so changed around so many times that I was like, oh my gosh, I am done. And this episode is probably already long enough. So that's where I'm at. Here's where I have landed. I'm working on these 3 things that I will be implementing throughout the year as much as possible. Number 1 is having no call days. I like to have at least 3 days per week with no calls. Number 2, I like to have no call weeks, and that is at least 1 week per month with no calls or appointments or forward-facing things, because that gives me those focused, long time blocks. And then number 3, the other thing I'm testing out and working on this year is theming my days. So for example, Monday would be like small projects, admin, groceries, finishing up any little final projects from last week. Tuesday, long work block. Wednesday, calls. Thursday, maybe a call in the morning, but long work blocks. Friday, my own business stuff, my own personal appointments, that kind of thing. So I'm testing those 3 things out for myself, and I'm going to see how it goes. There were a couple things I wanted to try that I didn't get to try in the nature of time and just like the way my schedule went. So those were the 80-20 rule, and that's where you focus on 20% of tasks that deliver 80% of results. That one kind of like made me panicky because I was like, well, what happens to the tasks that aren't delivering results but still need to get done? So I didn't get that one in. I did not get to energy-based scheduling. That's when you actually like sit down, identify when you're naturally focused, and then matching that to your tasks. That would be cool, but I didn't get to do that because I just didn't have that luxury at the time. My top takeaways were that I learned something new, and I learned a lot of new things actually, and I increased my resiliency. I think that I increased my flexibility and being able to adapt to like different things that come up and might need to impact my own personal time management favorites. But at the end of the day, here's what I actually think I learned. I think that finding time management and productivity tools that are really comfortable and natural to you, and then setting your business up accordingly and like not trying to fit yourself into other people's rules, it's going to be so much better because it feels easier, leaves you calm, leaves you more creative, productive, all the great, fantastic things. So I guess if I could recommend things like definitely do this if you can, if you have these luxuries. I definitely recommend the brain dump I mentioned at the beginning, like dumping out every bit of mental clutter in your mind. I also recommend, if you can, a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening regroup where you actually sit down and you're like, here's my week ahead. I personally, in addition to that, I like to do an evening or end of day that helps me to disconnect from the day and also plan out the next. So in this routine, I will clean out my downloads folder. I will clean out my trash. I will delete screenshots on my phone and computer. I will respond to any emails. And then I also have my list for the next day written out. Like I like to prep the day before. It takes me about 10, 20 minutes at the end of the day. Saves me a lot of angst and headache the next day trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing, when it's happening, all of those things. Remember, do what works for you. Try some new things, mix, match, try new things when life calls for it. And whenever you try something new, think of it like an experiment, right? I don't have to stick with this, although I'll give it a little bit of time to see if it works. And also try experimenting with different tasks because some productivity tools and time management tools will work really well for one task in your life or your business and not so well for the others. So see what works for you. And that is it for now. It was long enough, right? But I hope you enjoyed. I really liked doing this and reporting back. And I would be open, if you have any ideas for other things you want me to experiment with, I'd be open to doing that too. I can't wait to chat with you next month. We're into next month, May, which is Content with Characters anniversary month or birthday month, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be talking about all things clarity. And that is going to be really choosing our words, our actions in our business with clarity and with intention as we move forward into the second half of the year. So I will chat with you next week. Thank you so much, as always, for being here. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com, and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.